I saw this beautiful rural community, and I saw no kids riding their bikes to school. You know, when I grew up, that's how you got to school. You rode your bike, right? And here we are in a rural setting. You'd think an ideal place for children to get to school by bike, and there was zero, none.
I love Pender very much, but one of the things I don't love about Pender is there's no shoulders on the roads. So it's super unsafe for pedestrians and for people on bicycles.
What I found frustrating was that getting around Pender was so difficult. And so that was, ever since I moved to Pender, I had this in my mind that I would try to figure out how we could help get around Pender in a more enjoyable way.
Well, the need that the Schoonerway Trail responds to really is a safe way for people to get by bicycle, wheelchair, stroller, walking, running from the Magic Lake area, which is our main population base, down to the shopping area at Medicine Beach, as well as to the medical clinic and the school. And that's a major. That road had little side edges, really narrow and deep ditches, and so it really fills that need of moving the populace from the population base to some important areas.
All the ideas for the trails, that I would attribute them all to moving around Pender and that organization. And like I say, they've been working hard for many years on this. They've done many studies, they've got a lot of material that was documented. And so when I was introduced to them, they sent that all to me, and then I did feel it was my responsibility to figure out how to take that and see what we could do with it. So my thought process was I went on to the Parks Commission board, because I realized that the CRD was going to need to be a part of this for these bigger transportation trails that we were going to do. And so what they had done a study, they had got an engineering study done at MAP. And so I asked them to introduce that to the Parks Commission and do a presentation, and it all kind of went from there. The Parks Commission was engaged with it. We took it on board, and it was a big project. It was a huge community project. So the Parks Commission is really just, we get our local taxes and we manage our local parks here. It's not really set up to be able to do a multi-million-dollar infrastructure project for the community. But because we don't have that really, any form of government that's really set up to do that, we sort of went with that through the park system. But what we needed to do was get money from the community, because normally you have a municipality that works with the different levels, provincial and federal level of government, to build these things. But we don't have a municipality, we don't have that discretionary income. So we went out to our community and asked for pledges, and we got a lot of pledges. We got large, but also small, but just a huge number of pledges came in. And that was able to allow us to get the $1 million from the BC Active Transportation, which kicked off the whole project.
Well, in the original conception of this idea, which moving around Pender was involved in, a big potential obstacle was that the trail sort of went along a busy road where it looked like it was going to have to go onto people's private land. Now, MAP does that. We work with private landowners to position trails on their land, but this was a different kettle of fish, because this was a trail that would be partially on private land, but mostly on a Ministry of Transport right-of-way. So MAP wasn't that used to that, and that's why we formed this partnership with the Pender Island Parks and Recreation Commission, because that's their job, is to work on trails on land that is part of public land, like Ministry of Transport.
Probably one of the most notable experiences I've had was with a cycling accident, which was really unfortunate, where a gentleman had crashed his bicycle and suffered paralysis. And that always stuck with me, that there could be a safer way to cycle on Pender. And yeah, it just kind of, it's always a memory for me associated kind of with cycling and walking and moving around Pender, and there's got to be kind of a better way to do that.
And moving to Pender, it was a bit of a shock to be this close to nature and yet still be like have a lot of difficulty accessing it safely. So I was really stoked when I first heard about the idea of the trail.
I'd say it began early on when we recognized that basically no kids walked to the school, that everybody was bused, and that so it was discussions way back even before MAP became MAP with Paz and Pender. We were sort of saying, there really should be a connection from the school into Magic Lake where most of the people live. So, around 2011, 2012, we sort of said, well, what would it take to get a trail here going? So we started off by talking to the neighbors, and we just went door to door and knocked on the door and said, how'd you guys feel about a trail? And then we got some funding from the CRD. Grant and Aid was able to provide us with some funding to get a survey done. So we knew where the ends of the boundaries were. And at that point, we identified there were a number of pinch points and stuff like that. We got a little bit more money, and we got the initial prototype engineering report, commissioned that. And that was just around COVID. The engineering companies were looking for something to do, so we got a deal. And we got them. They came out, took a bunch of pictures, eventually got a report out of them. And with that in hand, we had a pretty good feel for what it would take to build this trail. And so once we were able to get the Pender Island Parks and Recreation Commission on board, and they were able to take it on and really drive it.
We have an amazing park system. We have about, I think it's 81 different parks on Pender, access points. Everywhere you go is worthy of going, but it was getting to there was the big problem. So, you really were just forced to either drive in your car around this tiny little island, or if you did walk and bike on the main corridors, it just was very unpleasant.
The community support in terms of Magic Lake Property Owners Society, our membership support, which is a decent segment of the community of Magic Lake. We have probably 800 members, 400 residents, a little over 400 residents, so over 800 members. And they really got on board fast. In fact, at the AGM, 2024 AGM, when we took Rob's first request for funding, and the board had talked about and recommended to the membership $10,000, and the membership upped it at the AGM to $15,000, and so the membership has been totally behind this since the beginning, and actually kind of started pushing the board along, to get with the program even bigger than it already was.
Well, I think when things got tough in the early stages to keep things moving, I really got to credit Rob Fawcett, our sort of project coordinator for this. I mean, he made great relationships with all the landowners. He made great relationships with all the different governmental agencies. He just continued to push forward in a really nice way, really nice, calm, cooperative, sort of positive way. So Rob really has been the key to making this project a reality.
It actually began with MAP, which is an organization that's been around on Pender for a long time. It means moving around Pender. And they initially started kind of breaking ground at that location, I believe in 2018. And they started originally with just doing an engineer report and a survey. And I think they just got a bit bogged down by the general huge undertaking that it really was. And so that's how it started. And then it just kind of took someone new to come and see the potential and then take it on. And that was Rob Fawcett.
On Pender Island, there's not really a uniform Ministry of Transportation and Transit right-of-way. Just to give a little background, so that's what the CRD, we have a license of occupation to run like a 2-kilometer park, basically, and it's all within the Ministry of Transportation right-of-way. That being said, private property lines come out to the road and do strange little things, so that we had to get 14 private statutory right-of-ways that are incorporated into that right-of-way so that the trail could have its most natural alignment. And so I had to sit down with 14 different local community members and you know, some had some concerns, some had other concerns, some had no concerns, to be quite honest, which was, but yeah, that was a complicated thing. It was a big ask in a way to go out to your community members, and but we went 14 for 14, so 100% of the people who we asked, and basically the ask was, you know, could we have statutory right of way so that we can make the best alignment for this trail? We could have made it in other ways and a little more convoluted, and we still could have done it. But really what you're asking from your community members is that if you help out, we can make the best trail we possibly can for the community, and 100% of them said yes. So
I first heard about this project, I believe it was somewhere around 2 years ago when Rob was just in the school yard talking about it to parents at an event that was happening that day. And I remember thinking to myself, finally, somebody that has the passion and the drive to see this project through, because our island really needs ways to connect that doesn't involve us taking a vehicle to get to places.
So I've been a physician here on the island for 10 years. I have seen many accidents off a short shoulder of the road, which prohibits people from either walking or riding bikes. So I've seen people crash bikes. I've seen people step off a bank because the shoulder's, you know, a couple inches in some places. You know, as a physician, I talk to people constantly about getting more exercise and being more physically fit, but there's limits to that on this island. You know, in the summer, there's more access to trails, but in the winter, and when the trails aren't accessible, and there are some people that the trails, you know, are just going to be too rugged for them. There's just not many great walking paths or trails for biking than before this.
The trail project is something that we've needed for a very long time, in my opinion. Over the years, I have spent some evenings walking home from work, which can be a very treacherous and dangerous endeavor. And the addition of the trail is going to make at least a section of that a whole lot safer for everybody.
I watched this project start, and a lot of people were just waiting to see what happened. And as it developed, I think that people realized that it was actually going to come to fruition. For one thing, as I said, there's another island where it took so long, way over budget, and it was not looked upon favorably by all of the community. Here, I think people are very pleasantly surprised.
As a first responder, there's absolutely been issues. We've had all kinds of accidents on the island, mostly bike scenarios, mostly people that don't know the island, but we get a lot of tourists on the island that actual bike groups come on the island, and they're advertising it. Some group, and it's in some points you've probably noticed there's like 30 bikers all at once. So that trail can handle that. Go for it, you know, off the road, no problem. But yeah, there's definitely been issues and accidents.
I first heard about this project from my husband, who had been working at the community fair in a booth beside Rob and the Pender Parks folks, and they were starting to fundraise for this trail. And I didn't know anything about it at the time, but my husband came back from the fall fair, and he was really excited about the project, and he said, you've got to get involved, you've got to talk to Rob. And so it was fun because Rob was showing up in front of the True Value store, and he was talking up the trail to the community after that. And it was really easy then to make that connection and say, really just so easy to say, how can I be involved?
So the trail is classified as a linear park. And this was a vision that earlier parks commissions had, is to operate these linear parks. And so really the CRD got a license of occupation, basically a 2-kilometer linear park that runs from the Danny Martin Park to our school. So, I mean, it really connects these two major recreational areas with a linear park in between. So it really creates a great asset for the community overall.
There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that goes into building a trail like this. I think we have the easy job. We get out there and, you know, we sort of blaze the trail, and it looks like, you know, we're doing all the work, but behind the scenes with the CRD, the First Nations, you know, the engineers, you know, even my boss does all the pricing, and Yeah, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, you know, and then you've got the guys like Rob Fossett and the parks, you know, they definitely carry the load for sure. This project is, you know, it's, as I said before, it's very community driven. You know, I'm on, you know, big civil jobs, the side of the road. You know, the public are usually frustrated with you and driving past. They're usually, you know, flipping you off, whereas here they're stopping and, you know, congratulating you and thanking you and dropping off muffins, you know, to a point where you got to move them on. It's a safety hazard, you know, so it's, yeah, completely different. Never experienced anything like it. Yeah, unique bunch of people over here. Few characters. Everyone's offering advice, you know, and help, whether you ask for it or not, but it's really good, you know, you just feel part of the community, and yeah, it's great.
Our team, for the project, our team actually had to cut down all the trees that hang over the road, top all the cedars that were dangerous, anything that had to come out into the trail, we needed to take out, remove, chip, and we left all the wood laying there for the natives and other people to come get. And yeah, had to organize flaggers and ISA approved guys to work around power lines to come over.
When we were braking on phase 2 on the rock bluff there, just worried about big rocks falling and rolling over, just being prepared for anything. And you know, with the traffic and the lane closure and that. So other than that, looking out for overhead power lines, a lot of, you know, with a machine there, not a lot of space, and dumping trucks too. You know, like having or lack of access in certain places. So just really working angles and making it work.
Challenging parts of this build would have either been the whole ramming of the rock face to make room for the path, or farther up the road, we were near the wetlands and we had to go down deeper and not interrupt the road or the wetlands and make the path. Coming down the 1S bend, where we had to disturb the traffic more, so it was trying to not disturb them as little as possible, but get things done. And yeah, some people don't slow down, so you're trying to do the least amount of disturbance and still get stuff done, trucks off the road, and that was about the most difficult part.
Some places we had to dig down deeper, and then we put some heavier boulder-sized rocks in and built it up to make a solid ground where it was real soft underneath. So we have big stones, and then we have our 3-inch rock from there to there, and then we have crush, which is our 3/4 minus, and then our fine 6 mil there at the top, which is about 2 or 3 inches thick, depending on where you're at. Compacted, everything's packed down in their layers, and the big rocks at the bottom is just water just drains right through, so it's perfect in those areas, especially where it was real soggy. Anywhere we needed, we put a culvert, put our ditches around that.
I think a moment in construction that stood out would have been when the 6 mil finishing material started going down on top, and it just, you know, it looks like a paved trail. It's really popped. That was a highlight. Another highlight would probably be getting up towards the ball diamond. Just the locals up there, amazing. You know, we had home bacon getting handed over the fence, bottles of whiskey and rum. You know, like just people just were so ecstatic with what we were doing, and you know, it was great. So it felt like we were all sort of part of the same team up there, and got up to the ball diamond there and dealing with Danny, and he's a great guy. You know, and he gave us free power to use. That's where I set up my office. And you know, I've tried to pay him, he won't take any money. You know? That's just the people on this island, mate. They're just something else.
I just couldn't see the rationale behind the trail. I have to say that once they started building and the construction, it was really fascinating because things seemed to be really going in a very fast and in a very good way. So I think that hearing about it 2 years ago, watching it being created over the last 2 years, and now walking on it and seeing many other people walking on it, I am a convert.
You know what I love about the trail, which I think, again, I think it might be a rural thing, but it's so nicely built. Like it's on the quality of a very nicely made road. It's smooth and the surface is like fine and compacted. And it's like accessible in a way where you can, if you wanted to go and enjoy it, you can drive to a certain end of that park and walk back and forth like easily. And I think, because I was there a little while ago at a residence, and the trail surface itself kind of caught my attention. It's just like so nicely made, you know?
Well, they're definitely going to notice a lot more of the surroundings just because they're not doing 50 kilometers an hour. They're going to be able to look around, see the skunk cabbage, see the left-hand side of the forest there, where the wetlands area in there. They're just going to see more because they're walking instead of driving.
Feels like we're building a model, developing and building a model that, you know, and there's a lot of sort of catchphrases you can use from civil and just planning in general, community planning. That sort of mid-century, we got away from it because it was such car-driven, you know, culture, always being in a car. But yeah, walkable communities and all of that connected. There's an idea, and I think the trail is part of the spine that supports it, is this idea of having a third place in one's life. Like you have your home, place 1, place 2 is your workplace, and place 3 is a social place, coffee shop, a pub, whatever. And so to live a sort of emotionally balanced life, you need those 3 sort of spaces in one's life. Yeah.
I'm hoping my children will use it on a semi-regular basis. We live in Magic Lake. I have 2 children that attend the Pender Island Elementary and Secondary School. I'm even willing to consider driving their bikes home if they're willing to ride them to school on a semi-regular basis. One daughter has plans of keeping her bike stored at the baseball diamond, which I think is actually a practical idea, realistically, because it's the part after the trail that makes it much more of a challenge. So,
well, I think the project matters greatly to the community because it engages everybody. As a community, it engages the wee ones who can walk or use their trike. And seniors, I guess, you know, again, a gentle walk. We're off the road. We don't have to worry about the little ones and whatnot with their bicycles and stuff being so close to the road. So it serves a lot of purpose. Yeah, and it integrates. You know, the old folks are going to walk down there, and you see little gaffers and stuff. So it brings the community together. Yeah.
Everybody walking this trail once it's complete. Those who've been putting off walking for lack of safety in their eyes, all generations. And again, I think that's going to reinforce a sense of community. So I look forward to that. And I think tourists will benefit from it too. We won't have as many calls, emergency calls, people getting hurt, frankly. Oh, we won't be so worried for them. Yeah.
So this trail brings people together. The idea of it brought people together. Some people didn't like it, now they love it. Some people have always loved the idea. Some people didn't like the idea of cutting down a few trees. Now they're okay with it. So everybody had a thought about it. So even before it was finished, it brought community together. So to me, that is the most important thing, other than the fact that it's there and we can use it and it's safe and the kids can use it. It has built community, and it will continue to do so.
The success on this project will definitely be kids using it. You know, people on the trail, people walk on the trail. When people drive by, you'll see somebody walking on the trail, using it yourself. You know, if it's ever used for situations like community events, those sorts of things, it'll certainly people using it. I mean, we have our other trails on the island, and some of them, you know, they don't connect things yet. This is going to be our first one that really does a connection. And MAP has always been about, you know, making connections on the island so that you can get out of your car. And this is a pretty significant one, going Magic Lake to the school. You got destinations and seeing people use it.
I think you kind of have to look at accessibility for everyone. Pender is like kind of a unique place because we do have a lot of like young families. And then you have a large senior population of people that are getting out and going for walks. And I think we're hoping they go for walks. But I think there isn't a lot of great trails on the island, and there's not a, like, even the roadsides, like, they're hilly, they're just not a safe place to go. So I think of, like, my parents live on the island as well, and my mother-in-law who walks like an hour and a half every day just around Magic Lake. And I just think it gives more people more flexibility to be able to go out and, like, have a purpose, go for a walk, do that trail, go to this place, and just not feel like they're, like, having to, like, battle it, or it's like obstruction. Like, they can just go and enjoy it, as opposed to, like, they have to get to this place.
Because there's like this spot where there's like a ditch, so even if the cars like swerve off, they wouldn't hit. So it feels like really safe that you can just like bike without any like cars trying like to swerve off or something.
I mean, I was like excited because that's a easier way to get to school if you want to walk to school, or if you want to walk to like Truss or the bakery. And I really like walking to the beach, so the beach is also an option.
I really like because whenever the bell rings for the end of the day, I'm always super excited that it now like the day's not over, because now I can back home with like my family.
My first thought was that I was really excited for it because I'm a runner. I'm very well recognized on this island as being somebody who's just out all the time, and I run down that road very often. So I was quite excited when I heard about the trail, because that means I don't need to run in the ditch anymore when there's a car coming by. So yeah, just looking forward to it.
So, we can say that we want to get outside and we want to be in the wilderness, but realistically, if there's not some sort of, pathway that's been designed, it's going to be pretty tough. So this allows us to be outside in the wilderness in a safe manner, removed from traffic, but still enjoying all the beautiful wilderness.
For the visitor for the first time looking at the trail, I'd want them to notice how much effort the people took into getting the visual impact of safety, of what it's meant, what its purpose is, not just about visually pretty, but about, oh, that makes sense, it's a huge trail, it's pretty wide. So to say the care it took to do it, and it wasn't just slopped together, which you can totally see, and the love that it took with everyone, not just the builders, but the guy down the road, like that it took the community to do that, and it wasn't just to slap it together, and the purpose of it. So
I think this trail shows huge love and compassion for community, and that's why I was into it from the very beginning. I just thought, okay, what's going to bring community together here? I think it's a growing energy, really, and I think it's a brilliant way to bring so many positive things to Pender.
I hope the trail will be a catalyst for more trail, more visitors who want to come and really hike around, who don't want to spend their vacation driving from location to location. I hope it'll be a catalyst for neighbors being able to visit each other more frequently, for people being able to go down to Medicine Beach and hopefully into other parts of the island with confidence and safety, and really just make the island more multi-use friendly, we'll say. Yeah.
I like seeing the ones on the trail that have, they don't look like walkers, they're not out there in their Gore-Tex, they're in their jeans, and they come walking along, and they tap you on the shoulder, and they say, look, I was against this trail at the start, and it's I'm all for it, it's the best thing ever. That's sort of who I envision. Hopefully I can, to see some more people like that using it.
I hope people have just the experience they're looking for, if they want to go for a nice walk and they can walk beside their friend now, or if you're a 15-year-old kid, rip into school on your bike. Or for me, if I'm driving right now, because that's what I do, I drive to work, I'm not putting anyone in danger at the end of the day. So whatever you want to get from the trail, I hope you get it.
Well, it removes stress for both parties. The person trying to walk and get some exercise or get somewhere, and the people driving on the road. Like, you don't have to, there's no stress or tension there, but when can it pass? The roads are so curvy, like, when's that going to happen? But now, like, that's both those are just, they don't overlap.
Like, it's always been there. Because like I think they did such a good job where you drive by it, it's not like, oh, look at this, is brand new and it's noticeable. Yeah. It's like nice, everything. It looks like it's supposed to be there. So people, I think, just show up and be like, this is so nice. If they've never been here, they probably thought it never had been any different. And they're probably like, I wonder why it's not everywhere else.
So this has been so successful, and I think in all of our eyes on the island, it's happened more quickly. The way it's happened has gone so smoothly. The crews were so respectful. Things just went so nicely that I think we all have a belief that we can move forward and have an extension of the trail.
Yeah, it's funny because, a lot of change on Pender can be often like a source of public debate. And this is one of those rare instances, I think, that you could say that everyone seems to be very much for it. And I was thinking about that on the way here, where it's not just really about moving to and from like one location, like it's connecting people.
So I think this is sort of the first or maybe second step in that journey. So I think in 5 years, we'll see other portions of the Magic Ferry route, and maybe, who knows, maybe completion of the Magic Ferry route. It would be magic, Kevin.
Yeah, I think, I'm obviously, I am the most excited about the kids being able to use it. The idea, like, especially that portion as you leave the school and you get into the trees right away, and even how there's a little bit of dips and there's some turns in there. As a mountain biker, I mean, riding my bike on trails with, surrounded by trees has been a big part of my life. And so you get a little feel for that just as you leave the school, so that kind of excites me for, students, whether or not they're biking or walking, that they just jump right out of school and then they're on a trail in the trees. That's kind of what I like the most about it.
So I think this project shows us that our community is capable of big things. I mean, that's $1 million project, $1 million plus project. It's a beautiful trail. It's beautifully constructed. It's going to really serve a great purpose. And it shows us that we can do it. We can do it in other areas as well. And that's really what we want to be looking for, is other ways to get people out of their cars and off the roads safely. Getting exercise, being able to use their bicycles without fear of their lives being ended around the next corner. So it really shows us that we can do great things, and we should continue to do so.